and good evening and welcome to Vox 10. I cannot believe that we're halfway through season 1 of our Vox Talks with super talented Hot House alumni. And tonight's guest is rather special as a young man dialing in all the way from across the pond, which is that way. He's calling in from North America. He's actually in Toronto and his name is Jack Dring. He is actually the sales manager for the whole of North America for the fourth biggest music company in the world, a company called Buffet Crampon. And this is super exciting that we've managed to get him in here because I know he's uber busy today. And just a few guidelines for the session for those that have not listened before. If you want to send a message in, now is a great time because Jack is a ridiculously good trumpet player and has played with some of the best musicians in the whole world. So send those musical questions in because I really try and like to eat that out of him. He's super humble and super honest. So send those through. Also, if you want to keep your mics muted, that would be really nice. And that way we don't have any accidental phone calls or text messages. I should just say that a little plug for later on this year, we have got on the 24th of June, we're going to be speaking at our very first Vox 1 Talks Chaps webinar to 3,000 students. If anybody's interested in apprenticeships, Young Professionals UK are going to be running a week's worth of online work experience courses. And we're one of the guest people. We're speaking alongside PricewaterhouseCoopers, Rolls-Royce. So if you're interested in that, that's on the 24th of June. Please do get in touch with him in person, Dan Miller, and he'll hook you up with the contact details. Also, big news today, another Hot House ringtone has just been launched. If you would like to hear the Hot House Saxophonics playing Treasure, you may now download that onto your phone and be woken up by them at all times of the night. If you want more details, please message the office and we'll send those through. So with no further ado, it's my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Jack Dring. Hello, Jack.
Hey, hi, everyone.
It's really cool to have you here, Jack. And thanks so much for giving up your time. I know it's sort of a busy day. I believe Jack is a Derby Grammar alumnus, and he went on to do the Conservatoire of Music in Birmingham before flying across the pond for a stellar career over there. Jack, if you've got a few minutes, could you take us through your potted history?
Absolutely. So I studied at Derby Grammar School, and that was where I got involved with Emmy Joe right around the time that became Hot House in the form that you see it today, and began playing trumpet with John. He was my trumpet teacher. I actually started life as a sax player beforehand, and I still own a drum kit, so it's always been musical, but I jumped onto the trumpet. I studied A-levels and then went to Birmingham Conservatoire to study trumpet with Percy Percival and Richard Isles. I did 2 years at Birmingham before I was offered a scholarship to go and study in New York at the Crane School of Music. I did that and things worked out well. They liked me, I liked them, so I actually transferred from Birmingham to New York for my 3rd year of university. And at the Crane School of Music, they have a great program where you can do a business degree and a music degree hand in hand. So after a total of 5.5 years, I graduated with both a business degree in the music industry and a trumpet performance degree. So I did 2 years of jazz in Birmingham and 2 years of classical trumpet in New York, just to kind of round out my playing a little bit there. Mm-hmm. I joined the Yamaha Corporation in the USA as an intern with their artist relations team in Indianapolis. I then joined Buffet Crampon in Minneapolis as a regional salesperson. And then 2.5 years ago, they asked me if I'd be interested in leading our Canadian team. So I'm the Canadian sales manager, not the North American sales manager.
That's very cool, man. And throughout that time, you've done a lot of music all the way through. I mean, you did some crazy gigs with us. And obviously, you said you had Percy Percival, who still teaches at Birmingham and a ridiculously good teacher. Who did you have as your mentors over at the Crane School? And what sort of playing were you doing over there?
So I studied with a trumpet player called John Ellis, who at the time was the principal player in Ottawa's National Arts Symphony. He's since retired from playing, and he's finishing teaching this month. I think is his final month. Wow. So that was an orchestral, classical, legit, as they call it in the US, trumpet course. But I came into it with a lot of jazz experience from my time with Hot House and my time in Birmingham, and would still very much identify as a jazz musician in my heart. But playing-wise, I played on cruise ships. I played in the Queen Mary 2 going across the Atlantic. I've played all over Manhattan with some of the big Latin ensembles in the world. What else have we done? I played on a touring kind of West End show, a couple different ones in the UK when they came through Birmingham and around the country. And I'm now in this great position where I get to work in the music industry, but I don't play for a living. I get to play on my own time, just all the fun stuff. So brass bands, I played with a Rolls-Royce brass band. You name it, I just like playing the trumpet.
Yeah, man, and that's almost the dream for a lot of us, is to be in a place where you can pick and choose what you'd like to play. And, you know, where did the business part come from? Why the business? You know, is that something you did at sixth form that you took on, or was it just something, you know, you stumbled on?
No, it wasn't sixth form. I'm told I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial streak. Yeah. So in sixth form, I was playing around with like .com business and eBay business, little software stuff. And I think I realized early on, I was very lucky in Birmingham. For a first-year trumpet player, I got a lot of playing opportunities, mainly just because I had lead chops and you can kind of get away with it that way. And quickly realized that I loved playing, but I didn't necessarily love having to say yes to every gig, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'd always had in the back of my mind that there was probably business in my future at some point. And it wasn't until that scholarship to the US where the opportunity found me, really. And I thought, yeah, absolutely, let's do a music and business course. And I've been very lucky that opportunities have presented themselves at the right time for me to be where I am now.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you're doing music and business, because the two really do go well together. The communication skills, all of that work really nicely. Tell me a little bit about how you got from Birmingham to America. You know, that's just, you know, a lot of kids will think, I'm going to go to London and I'm going to stay there for 4 years and then I'm going to play. But actually, you know, the world's really small now, isn't it? We can just choose where we want to go to do something else. How did it happen for you?
So this was part of the Erasmus program that most music colleges in the UK participate in. It's currently being rebuilt a little bit due to the changing relationship with Europe. Won't get into that. But I think this is still offered like an exchange program between music conservatoires or music schools around the world. So I knew going into Birmingham that was a large part of why I chose Birmingham. The opportunity to do an exchange somewhere. And I was lucky that I was accepted into that program. And they basically said you could go anywhere. And I thought, well, I'm going to go to the US. I'm a jazz musician. That's the home of this music. New York's got a great jazz scene, some killer players. And really, I just jumped on the opportunity. And initially thinking it was just a one semester gig, 6 months, and then I'll be back in Birmingham. It was only the fact that I got there and I jumped into the university there, and they liked my playing, and we were able to find a situation where I could stay and continue my studies there.
And so I'm thinking that it's actually easy for people it wasn't too difficult to find the route through. There were people there on both ends helping you make that decision and make that move.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to be a self-advocate just to push it through, as if you're not serious about studying abroad or chasing any opportunity, then why should someone else do it for you? But I expressed an interest, and they very, very quickly got me into the systems and protocols I'd need to secure visas and funding and everything else that would make that happen.
That's good, isn't it? I mean, I think we are masters of our own destiny to a certain point, aren't we? And
100%.
We can choose. If we want to go and work in Singapore, we can just go. We can make it happen. That's up to us now. We have to take ownership of our lives. We had a great question from Elvid that's just popped in. Because obviously you've lived in America now and in Canada and Europe, and I know you've done a lot of travel to head office in France and things. Mm-hmm. A lot of company. What are the pros and cons, for living and working in Toronto, for example, compared to Derby?
Pros and cons. So there are. I see it as two different things here. You have the country you live in dictates a lot of things. the UK versus the USA versus Canada. There are things I love about each of them and things that I don't completely love about each of them. And a lot of that's personal, you know, what your preferences are. But the larger thing for me is the difference between like big cities, small cities, rural, urban. And I learned very quickly, I'm a big city person. I like the hustle and bustle of the Londons, New York, Chicago. Oh, we okay? That's my phone. I stopped that happening. Sorry. So I realized very quickly I like the hustle and bustle of a big city. So that, for me, being in Canada isn't the huge difference. Being in Toronto versus Derby is the difference. There's loads and loads of music going on. I like that at 4 o'clock in the morning, if you want to, you could go outside and find someone playing live music somewhere, grab a beer and hear great players at any time of the day, any day of the week. And maybe that's a bad example, as Derby has a great jazz scene. But a comparable smaller city, you don't have as much opportunity in the arts. So I've realized that I like that big city kind of vibe.
Yeah, and actually, Alan has just asked in there, you know, of all the places you've played your horn, have you got a favourite place? But for me, I'd like to know which has been the place that you've really gelled with. Because when I went to San Francisco last year, I was blown away. I mean, it's unusual we get great weather in San Francisco, but everything was perfect in San Francisco. So, you know, that's where I want to go back to straight away. But have you got, you know, a favourite gig place or a favourite highlight and then a favourite city?
Favorite gig place? Yeah, I toured. I got the opportunity to play in Manhattan with a very, very good Latin ensemble with some of the guys from the Tito Puente band, the Spanish Harlem guys, the Mambo Legends guys, and I'm forgetting the name of the venue, but like a hole-in-the-wall, tiny little venue in downtown New York City. And they just brought the house down. Like everyone, like the locals, have that dance and the rhythm in them, and it was just the most receptive audience I've ever played to. As a real lover of Latin music, it was just like there's an energy to it, and we played really well, and it was fantastic. In terms of cities or places, I've been very lucky to live in a few different places at the moment. But of all of them, Indianapolis is the city that I'm drawn back to the most. It's not a huge city. It's the capital of the state of Indiana, right in the middle of the United States. But I just fell in love with it. I think the fact that it has a really, really bustling kind of young professionals community. That was the first city I lived in once I actually graduated. And I just felt very, very at home very quickly in that city. So that's the Midwest US. People talk about it, and there's a friendliness and a warmth that you don't really get anywhere else in the world. And then after that, Toronto. I'm really lucky to live in a city that I just love at the moment. It took a while to get that way as you move to somewhere new, and new country, new job. But 2.5, 3 years in, and I really, really love this city.
So currently you work for Buffet Crampon, an international company. Could you tell us a little bit more about Buffet Crampon? Yeah,
so Buffet are we're a company that is a conglomerate of brands. So Yamaha is a great example. Yamaha have the benefit that they can put one name on everything they make. If it's a trumpet, a saxophone, bass guitar, jet ski, kitchen sink, it's a Yamaha. Unlike Yamaha, Buffet Crampon as an organization are made up of 12 different unique brands. So you might have heard of Buffet Crampon as a clarinet manufacturer, but Kyle with saxophones, VNS trumpets out of Germany, Besson, UK, cornets and brass band instruments. We're made up of lots of these individual historical brands. So it's a great company to work for, as we're one of the oldest music manufacturing companies on the planet, with some of the brands, Buffet, Anton Courtois, flugelhorns and trombones going back 250, 280 years. So there's a lot of expertise in the company with that. We are as of last year, the second largest manufacturer of woodwind and brass instruments globally, after Yamaha. And unlike a lot of the other big companies in the musical product world that we talk about, like tangible musical goods, we're one of the few where the majority of our manufacturing still happens in Europe. We've not outsourced everything. These are still German built or French built, or wherever the product's coming from. And just the quality of the instrument you get makes it a very easy company to work for.
So their headquarters are in Paris or France?
Yeah, we're in Mont-la-Ville, just to the northwest of Paris, about 20 minutes on the train. Yeah, we're a French-owned company, privately owned by an equity firm, and we have operations all the way around the globe.
Wow.
Every major continent has Buffet Crampon.
And as a musician, as a touring musician, you have to get used to traveling, don't you? You go all the way around, you go different time zones, you back and forth across the pond. And I guess it's the same with business as well. How do you, from your point of view, how would you advise a young person, say 18, 21, settling into new cities? What things should they do, when they get there? Is there some basic guidelines that you'd follow?
Yeah, I've this is my 5th relocation in about 7 years. So a lot of like major moves, not just changing apartment in Toronto, like moving to a different city. The biggest thing for me is you've got to be proactive. It's on you to settle into a new city. The city won't come to you. You've got to grow roots and dig in, like that phrase, digging into a new city. So for me, I found that as a musician, getting out to jams, getting out to playing opportunities, just meeting the musical crowd wherever I'm moving. And then finding ways to meet people your own age or people that share interests. So I moved to Toronto, joined like an amateur sports team, like a kick-around sports team, or like a hiking club or a skiing club, something to just force your way into a city. And you'll be amazed at how quickly real friendships will form once you find those other young people with similar interests and hobbies and motivations. Yeah,
and that music helps with that, doesn't it? You've got a natural a way to get hold of people and really enjoy it. I think it's super, actually. And, part of what we do with our touring program is about persuading kids trying to persuade the kids that they need to go and say hello to people. It's up to them to go and introduce themselves to famous superstar drummers. They're not going to come and say hello to you like we do at schools. You've got to be brave and take a risk. And I think you embody that in every single level, every single level. What about life lessons, Jack? We know that your bro is a professional bass player, ridiculously good. Your dad was an engineer with the BBC, super good. Your mum's like a world-class nurse. You come from a family that's setting trends around the world. What are the life lessons you're going to take with you and pass on, to young people or family?
What a good question. I think first and foremost, the single most beneficial thing that I've done is the idea of finding a mentor. And this doesn't have to be a formal business guru that you sit down with and take note, like just anyone that you look up to and that shapes the way that you develop, sorry. Yeah. So all the way from, I think without realizing it, when I was in Hot House, like John, you were mentoring me there. Yeah. And then Percy and Richard in Birmingham, like these people that shape your outlooks. And it wasn't until I moved into the working world with Yamaha that I really found someone I connected with, and we've maintained a very long-standing, like more formal mentor relationship where I can go into a conversation and say, hey, I'm 27 years old and I've just been asked to run the Canadian division of this big manufacturing company. What do I do? Like, holy crap, what? Help. And like that ability to be really, really honest and open with the view of improving. So find a mentor and don't overthink it. Like anyone that provides a positive influence and guidance in your life, but dig into it, really forge that relationship and keep going with it.
So true.
I think being flexible is really, really important. I had the opportunity to move to the USA from the UK, and I said, yeah, what's the worst that could happen? I pack my bags and go home. Yeah, it could still happen. It hasn't happened yet. So the flexibility, leading on from the mentorship discussion, I think get up early and work hard. Whatever it is that you're doing. If when I was in Birmingham, practice-wise, I got up really early and got my hours in early in the day so that I could have the rest of the day free to do what I wanted to do, which wasn't always practice. Work hard. Whatever you want to do, it's not for me to tell you what you're doing, but pick something and really, really work at it, and you'll be amazed at how quickly opportunities or luck or whatever you want to call it starts appearing for you.
Yeah, totally agree. And we all have life challenges. Was there a particular moment, when you were going through your formative years that you thought, how am I going to get past this? And you got there. You're happy now. It doesn't happen to everybody. Some people live a charmed life.
Yeah, so I've certainly had my fair share of ups and downs. I had a cancer diagnosis when I was 22 years old, so like fairly recently, and that was a very, very challenging year. I had to move back to the UK and went through hospital treatments and so forth in Derby and Nottingham with fantastic NHS staff, particularly right now. Like, holy cow. So like that was a very, very low point for me, both physically and mentally challenging. But I think that's where I learned some of my best lessons in terms of like no matter how hard your world is, if it's SATs or GCSEs, A-levels, if you just had your heart broken by someone, whatever, down to serious medical illnesses, no matter what's going on, things will get better and it will be okay. And that latter phrase has unintentionally become a bit of a mantra for me. If it's everything's melting down at work, if it's my car's broken down, if whatever, but things will be okay. And it's amazing how once you really dig into that idea, quite how much that opens your horizons and opportunities, and your comfortability taking risk and moving abroad and leaving a job or whatever that situation is.
Yeah, you only have one life, and you do it better than most of us by an absolute mile. And I just want some of our kids to understand, and the mums and dads to understand that we all face challenges of varying degrees, whether it's health or mental health or work related. And the fact that, like you just say, it gets better. You can work your way through it, and I think that's an amazing testament to what you've managed to achieve, Jack. It's super cool. Come to my favourite bit of the talk, though. It's the memory lane, really. Trip down memory lane. I was talking to Stu a bit earlier today, thinking, what are our favourite memories of Jack? And I've got two that I want to share with the listeners. Number one, and they're all safe, don't worry, it's okay. The number one was Jack, obviously he played saxophone, trumpet and drums, but he used to come to our jazz academy on Saturday mornings with a patchwork quilt of a drum kit. Every single piece of his drums was a different colour, and every piece of his drums was a different make almost, and he'd come and play drums.
It was a complete Frankenstein kit, and I've still got it, and I love it dearly.
And it was great, and that just went to show that you can be your own person. You can be independent. You don't have to do what everybody else does. That was number one. Number two was we once did a fundraising bike ride for one of our international tours, and Jack and his dad decided to cycle from Derby over to Waterhouses, which are 20 miles. Then they sponsored bike ride, which was another 20 miles. Then they cycled back to Derby, which is another 20 miles, and basically did 60 miles worth of bike ride with grade 8 happening at 9:30 the next day.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, and not only did he manage to do it, and while Jack was in his exam, his mum was texting me saying, "I'm really worried about Jack. I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it. We maybe overdid it yesterday." And they came out of it and got a distinction, and we ended up calling the head teacher and saying, "Wow, this is incredible! What a great guy!" So, I've got great memories of Jack's resilience and bravery and just being a great guy. I don't know if you've got anything you want to share.
I think the only one I'd add to that, I distinctly remember the first time I'd been playing with Emmy Joe and Hot House and working my way through the bands. The first time I was asked to sit in with the top big band at the time. I forget what it was called in that iteration, but that moment of realizing, like being able to look back and say, I started here and now I'm being asked to play with what, for all intents and purposes, is a professional big band. That really, really hit home for me. And I got to wear a blue shirt instead of the black shirt, and like the little things that I still remember being a big deal. So in a lot of ways, that was the start of this crazy journey that I'm still on, where these doors just keep opening and I'm somehow still working in music and playing and traveling the world in this wonderful kind of world of music that we all live in. That was a real big moment for me.
Yeah, it's very cool, Jack. And you know, what does the future hold for you? Have you got an idea, a 5-year plan? Where do you think you're going next?
I have no idea. 3 days ago, I received my Canadian permanent residency. So for the first time in about 9 years of my life, I'm not tied to a visa, you know, not working with some caution. I can stay in Toronto for the rest of my life, should I wish. So right now, I'm just enjoying being able to step back and just be Canadian, be in Canada without worry of what the future holds. I'm sure I'll keep moving. I love Toronto, but if opportunity brings me to Paris with the company, or if opportunity moves me to a different company, you weigh every decision up and go with what feels right. So I have no idea, but I'm sure music will be involved.
That's amazing. Thanks, Jack. And I'm sure if there's anybody out there who would like to know a bit more about music and business, and how it might work, or the different routes into music and business, because there's lots of ways, you know, both locally, apprenticeships, and through international study. Jack won't mind responding to a couple of people's, because it's all about paying it back, isn't it? Doing the mentor thing.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share my email or LinkedIn or whatever works best for you guys.
Can't think of anybody better to be a mentor for somebody who's interested in going into music and business. So thanks so much, Jack. We really appreciate it. Have a great day, because I know you're only just starting. And
yeah, we're still in the thick of it. Thank you guys as well. It was
and we'll look forward to seeing you all soon. Guys, thanks very much. Have a lovely one. See you next week for Vox 11. Bye, everyone.